Pretty exciting for a lot of folks who want to ride the train. King 5's Alex Rozier live now with details on what's new. Alex, they told us you were just about to leave the station. Are you off?
We're about ready to go. We haven't left quite yet, but we're going to any second. We're on the brand new 6 a.m. Amtrak ride heading from Seattle to Portland.
Certainly is. It gives me more time to get my job done in Centralia and continue on.
Perfect. Well, Rudy, before I fall over, I'm about to send it back to Jake and Joyce as we pull into Tacoma here, guys.
Pulling into the station. Very nice. That's going to be great for a lot of people. I've never actually taken an Amtrak train before, but I hear it's awesome.
Great way to travel. You're hearing something about a train derailment?
I'm not only hearing a train derailment, I am seeing a WashDOT tweeted photo. They have taken down the DOT camera, and I'll give you all the information I have right now related to this picture that we're getting. That is a train accident, that we have all southbound lanes blocked in DuPont on I-5 southbound at Mounts Road. We don't know if there are any injuries. We don't know if there are any casualties. I'm seeing reports that this is being treated as a mass casualty event with multiple emergency responders.
We've had Alex Rozier on board this Amtrak train, not this one, but he was on this train earlier.
He was on an Amtrak
this morning talking about the expanded line from Pierce County to Oregon.
Jake and Joyce, I'm honestly kind of shaken right now because we were on this exact train. I just confirmed with Sound Transit that it was Amtrak 501 that derailed, and that is the train that took off from Seattle this morning at 6 a.m. for Portland. This is the very first day that Amtrak has rolled out their new early service. We got off in Tacoma, and about 15 minutes later, that same train derailed. So many of the people that we were speaking with all morning long are likely on this train. So it's hard to even process what is unfolding here when you look at these images.
But here's another shot from Chris. Train is derailed. Emergency crews are on the scene. Massive damage. He says people are hurt.
It looks like we're seeing ambulances leaving the scene heading northbound now. I've just seen 2. And it looks like I'm seeing more coming this way.
Injuries and casualties have been reported. Injuries and casualties, Jake. Numbers are to come.
Photographer Jim Scott also just tweeted he was with Alex Rozier this morning when they were live on the
10 minutes
train.
before this happened.
We've been hearing from a lot of you on the ground. We have Dan on the phone now. Dan, it sounds like you were there to try to help people on the ground. What did you see?
So we went through the trains one at a time, made sure people were stable. If they could move, we got them out of the train. Some of them we couldn't because there was no ladders yet, or first responders for about 12 minutes. Some of them couldn't move. They had back or neck injuries, so we assigned people to stay there with them and keep them calm. And then we worked our way down to the more serious injuries where people were pinned underneath the trains that had flipped upside down. And unfortunately, there were some deceased.
Jim, if I can just have them show this. I have this lanyard over my head right now. I'm gonna try and show you this right here. This is what every passenger received when they got on the train this morning. It says December 18, 2017, the Amtrak Cascades rollout. I mean, there was every type of person on board this train this morning. You had the rail enthusiasts who wanted to be a part of history. You had the work commuters who were trying to get to the office. You had the young people who were potentially going home after maybe a college semester.
Got some brand new aerials here above you. These are live pictures from a helicopter above you, and now new word from the Associated Press. I think I can go with this, guys. The Associated Press reporting at least 6 killed in this crash. So we now have at least 6 dead confirmed in this just horrible Amtrak train derailment. And as we get these first pictures here from above, Joyce, it's more clear to me just how violent of a crash this may have been.
We just heard the State Patrol say that in some of those unsecured cars, they haven't been able to get in to thoroughly search those.
Right.
Those are really heavy cars perching off this overpass. That's going to be quite a job just to secure them, isn't it?
Yes, and that's the question, is anybody still in there?
2 cars are too unsafe to get to, and frankly, the words that he used, he said, we know that the people inside those cars are not alive.
Amtrak 501 was on its inaugural run from Seattle to Portland. When at 7:33, it abruptly stopped.
Need EMS ASAP. It looks like they're already starting to show up.
Hey guys, what happened?
We were coming around the corner to take the bridge over I-5 there, right north into Squally, and we went on the ground.
Is everybody okay?
I'm still figuring that out. We got cars everywhere and down onto the highway.
David Laurie, the crash of that train is right behind us here. We're on an overpass just north of the crash scene.
Let me set you up here with the scene over I-5 right here. That is the lead locomotive. It is a Siemens Charger. It is brand new. And that's how it ended up here. It is literally been shredded as it came down here off this curve. You can just see the trajectory that it hit on the way down.
A couple of them actually spoke to King 5's Drew Mickelson from their hospital bed. So Drew, how are they tonight?
Well, David, 79-year-old Charlie Hebner said it best when he said, "We're alive."
A lot of tossing and squealing and rattling of the train. It kind of got dark, and I found myself on the floor.
Count your blessings. Yep. Try to live day to day. Keep out of trouble.
And it sounds like some people
maybe I should stay off trains.
King 5 investigator Susanna Frame joins us with more. Susanna.
Laurie and David, people in the communities of Lakewood and Tillicum have been fighting against the high-speed trains for years. That message from the Lakewood mayor was just the most recent plea to state officials after other efforts to protest the project went nowhere. And now his warnings have taken on, of course, a whole new meaning.
Tonight we spoke to a young couple in their early 20s. They were on their way to work this morning, headed toward Olympia, when the train derailed.
When I arrived, there was 3 people pinned underneath that car that had flipped upside down. One was a female, and she was pinned from the waist down, face down, and Officer Rodriguez and I were able to get to her. Like, we dug her out, and he was able to get her out.
King 5's Glenn Farley and Kevin Glant show us exactly how things played out.
Based on photographs, the first half of the train leaves the curved track going straight, the locomotive ending up on I-5. The back half of the train continues to move forward, piling up on the bridge, also on I-5, before everything comes to rest.
For the first time in years, Hanford activated its emergency operations center at 8:30 this morning after a massive tunnel collapse. The entire site was on lockdown and then eventually evacuated. Although no one was hurt, there is a present danger. King 5 investigator Susanna Frame broke the story this morning. She joins us live outside the Hanford Nuclear Reservation.
Amanda, it's important to note right off the top that no one was inside that tunnel, but let me tell you what was in there and still is. 28 highly contaminated, massive rail cars. They were used to shuttle toxic materials underground here at Hanford during the Cold War. Now, until this morning, they were safe. They were protected by a large wooden roof, then 8 feet of soil on top of that. But when that gave way and a big hole came into the earth this morning, that's when the problems began.
Well, so it's either a drill or an emergency.
This exclusive King 5 video obtained from a Hanford worker shows employees moving to safety, taking cover.
Take cover actions and secure building ventilation.
Once inside buildings, they were told to not use outside ventilation or eat anything. It was unknown at that time if radioactive particles from that hole had spread into the air or onto people or food.
I'm actually surprised it took this long.
Steve Ellingson is one of thousands of Hanford workers told to take cover last week after one of the biggest emergencies ever to take place at the former nuclear weapons plant. Like lots of his co-workers, they've been expecting a crisis like this. As the cleanup is taking decades longer than anyone ever expected, the infrastructure is falling apart.
Of hoping that Congress has received a wake-up call, that a lot of things that have been put off, old infrastructure, over half a century old tunnel, that can't just be left as status quo.
The tunnel connects to this giant building, the Purex plant, more than 3 football fields long. That's where workers extracted plutonium. It's contaminated, but what you can't see is as well. Tunnel number 1 that caved in, exposing a portion of 8 rail cars full of Purex-related equipment. And now we know just how dangerous and radioactive the contents could be. Records obtained by King show wastes like lead, mercury, chromium, cadmium, and silver are stored there. Silver can cause a fire. Other documents show massive amounts of radiation, some boxes at 40,000 curies. That's a measurement of radioactive atoms rarely seen anywhere. Raise your hand if you are certain 100% that your sickness is due to working at Hanford.
Absolutely.
Couldn't be anything else.
No. Nope.
I've got chronic Berlin disease.
Toxic encephalopathy, frontal temporal dementia.
Been diagnosed with thyroid cancer.
COPD. I had my thyroid removed.
Chemicals we took in screwed us up. It screwed us up bad. And for somebody to
Their doctors agree these people are sick from the dangerous and dirty work at Hanford. But the U.S. Department of Energy, which runs the site, doesn't see it that way.
They say it didn't happen out there. I'm a liar.
Unless you got a bone sticking out of your arm, they're not gonna accept your claim.
Instead of helping them, the workers say the government routinely wages a cruel campaign to deny their medical claims. Notices like these come in fast and furious. We're planning to reject your claim. There's no evidence of a work-related condition. You've got no proof you're sick from work. We've decided to recommend claim denial. Your condition is not the result of an industrial injury.
And this is probably just a fraction of it, right?
Yeah, just a little bit of it.
Heaps of paperwork show how they're fighting the deep pockets of the feds, hiring lawyers, racking up medical and legal bills, and for many, going broke.
Got to cash out my 401k and sell a bunch of stuff just to get by, you know, just so that, you know, we were able to feed our kids, and, you know, we've got 3 children.
How many of you feel that once you got sick, you were just discarded?
Yeah. You know, and they don't care. They don't care.
There's an allegation that you had a weapon in your waistband. There's an allegation that you possessed a gun last year.
The petitioner indicated that he twice threatened to kill her with a gun, pointed it at her, and cocked it in front of her children.
What's happening in this King County courtroom is leading to more of these ending up in the police property room. These firearms belong to accused domestic abusers, many of whom tried to hide them from authorities.
So all of these guns were recovered either from a search warrant or by people that served the protection orders.
Sergeant Dorothy Kim of the Seattle Police Department's Domestic Violence Unit is part of a new task force hunting for guns that would have previously gone undetected.
What's the likelihood that any of these guns would have ended up in police hands?
None. None. A year ago, none of these guns would have been recovered. We would never have done the search warrant.
This is just about whether you have the guns. That's the only thing this is about.
God is my witness, I don't have it, ma'am.
Okay.
Firearms hearings, like this one, specifically target people who are served with protection orders. The court has ordered them to cease all contact with someone, typically a family member or boyfriend or girlfriend, who filed for the court's protection.
I've tried everything to prove that I don't have any firearms.
The judge must ensure that people served with protection orders are following the part of the law that requires them to turn their guns over to police. That law exists because of the increased danger that domestic violence victims face if their abuser has access to a gun. They're 5 times more likely to be murdered.
Then all of a sudden, I get this phone call. He shot her.
That terrible call to Kathy Gock last year is an example. Her 33-year-old daughter Tabitha was shot in Federal Way, allegedly by her abusive ex-boyfriend.
How important is it to get guns out of the hands of domestic abusers?
Oh, Tabitha would be alive today. That should be proof right there. Tabitha would have been alive today.
Yet a King 5 investigation in May found the courtroom for firearms hearings nearly empty day after day, even though the calendar posted in the hallway showed dozens of accused abusers scheduled to appear. Our review of court records showed that nearly half of those people simply did not respond to the court's weapons surrender order. the law barring them from possessing guns was being ignored.
And this is a live look underneath downtown Seattle, where Bertha is breaking into daylight.
The tunnel boring machine pierced the cement wall of the disassembly pit just before 10 this morning. And just moments ago, WSDOT tweeted out that the cutter head is visible. No tweet needed. Look for yourself. There it is. The front of the machine that's been ripping through the ground under downtown Seattle for years now. It has officially happened.
I'm going to send it back to my colleague Amanda Grace, who's on the other side of that tunnel, where they're still celebrating today. Amanda?
That's right, Greg. Thank you. We are in South Lake Union. We are right outside of the North Portal, where you can see Bertha's pit in behind me. You can also see this giant crane that's going to be taking pieces of Bertha out. That's a process that is going to take weeks.
Cutter head is more visible than ever right now, and it's pretty remarkable to see it in person in front of you. This cutter head that we've talked so much about for the past few years, finally we're seeing it in the daylight.
King 5 has spent a year investigating a hunt that's been kept from the public eye, but well known on timber farms. Timber farmers say they need to protect their trees from bears who appear to be damaging their product. Those particular bears, the ones clawing and ruining trees, are legal kills.
The idea was to take the problem bear, and there was no pressure on you to get out there and kill as much as they are now.
This hunter says the practice is out of control, abused by timber farms and the hunters they use to get the job done, all facilitated by the state. If there's just one damaged tree, the state lets hunters kill 2 bears. The damage can even be a year old. The problem bear might already be gone or dead. Internal documents show employees believe it's not about problem bears, it's about unlucky bears. Ones that happen to be in the area the day dogs pick up a scent.
Some of the foresters want you to kill, 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 no matter what. Even the foresters have kind of a game between them to who gets the trophy every year for the most bear killed.
November 24, 1971. A passenger using the alias Dan Cooper boards a Northwest Airlines flight from Portland to Seattle. Once in the air, Cooper says he has a bomb in his suitcase and demands $200,000 and 4 parachutes to be delivered to him when the plane arrives at SeaTac Airport. FBI agents give Cooper the parachutes and a bag with the cash, and Cooper tells the flight crew to refuel the plane and fly to Mexico. When the plane is airborne again, Cooper has the crew lower the aft staircase, a unique feature of the Boeing 727. The crew, huddled in the plane's cockpit, believes Cooper jumped with the money in 2 parachutes from the rear stairs before the plane left Washington airspace. Authorities launched a massive manhunt around remote Ariel, Washington, but found no sign of the skyjacker, and the name, misreported as D.B. Cooper, stuck. The famous sketch of Cooper is largely based on a flight attendant's description of the 5'10" to 6', 180-pound man in his mid-40s with brown eyes and olive skin. Cooper left a JCPenney clip-on tie on the plane. The FBI lifted a partial DNA sample from the tie, but have never linked it to any suspects in the case.
King 5's Joyce Taylor has been there for a couple days now. She joins us with a look at today's festivities. Joyce.
It has been an extraordinary privilege to be here to cover this, this moment in history for all of you. We have a lot more ahead.
But as the new First Family waved to the crowds of supporters in Washington, D.C., across the nation, including here in Seattle, protesters made their voices heard.
A protest is still happening right now. You are looking at a live picture of Red Square on UW's campus.
Seattle police tweeted out that one person may have been shot at the protest. This is video that you're looking at of emergency crews helping that person in the back of an ambulance.
King 5's Ryan Takeo is there, and Ryan, this began as a demonstration against a speaker on campus, correct?
And you can see the police and they're on the top of the steps, and also some protesters and demonstrators. There are also some Trump supporters. But right here, this is where I want to show you this. It looks like a pool of blood.
I want to show you some video
from about 20 to 30 minutes ago that's on the other side of where we are right now. We had to move away because of the pepper spray was making it very hard for us to talk, and that's kind of why we're tucked in this corner at the university. But
5's Chris Daniels shows us why this day may be remembered locally for quite some time.
A new day.
I, Donald John Trump, do solemnly swear.
A new era.
I, Donald John Trump, do solemnly swear.
A new dawn. A day when many will remember where they were.
America, America.
And their visceral reaction. Tears of joy in Snohomish.
I believe that the Lord is using him as a wrecking ball.
The sound of sadness in Shoreline.
We refuse to accept the idea that it's okay to be racist, that it's okay to give misogynistic rhetoric.
That even with concerns here about dark days ahead, one thing is for sure.
Congratulations, Mr. President.
In this brave new world, the sun will rise again tomorrow.
A bit of a different tone tonight at SeaTac Airport. Live look now, where more than 3,000 people had gathered to show support for at least 6 travelers who were detained today. 2 of those 6 were released and allowed to enter the U.S.
Well, things seem to get more and more intense as the night goes on. A few minutes ago, one organizer came down these escalator steps asking people to follow her if they are willing to be arrested. And upstairs, a human chain is upstairs as people try to block the gates.
You can see there the gate has been closed to prevent protesters from entering that section of the airport. And it appears that that is blocking people from that section from leaving to go to the baggage claim.
Lon Cole finds himself sitting there sometimes. Sitting there, thinking about those things that haunt him.
I don't think you'd ever forget stuff like that.
It's those things he'd rather forget. Impossible to forget.
What is your fear for him?
It's kind of already come.
I did my time in hell.
When thoughts swirl in his head, he knows he needs to grab them, put them down on paper before they disappear.
So your fear is that that blank piece of paper will remain blank one day?
Oh, yes. We seem to get tired more.
Sometimes for this Vietnam veteran, it's hard to keep track.
I've got Parkinson's. I got peripheral neuropathy, diabetes.
PTSD.
And
the things he forgets.
I can't even remember all the things that the doctors tell me I have.
It's a lot of things. A lot.
Alzheimer's.
Oh, yeah. I forgot I had Alzheimer's. Yeah, I definitely got that one. This is a poem I wrote when I was in Vietnam after a few months of being a medic. It's called The Scream of Pain. You hear the scream of pain, you will know a soldier was slain. I was patching up Marines as we got ambushed. You could hear the poor boy cry 1,000 miles. Right away, I had 2 of them die on me. Why so many young men die this old way? It's hard when you lose them and you can't save them. I mean, that's the ultimate agony.
Those memories.
But the pain that comes from it, I'd like to forget.
One of the biggest frustrations surrounding the Weinstein scandal is that no one spoke up for decades. It was just swept under the carpet, but not anymore. Sexual harassment and assault are not easy topics to talk about, and the story I'm about to tell you may not be something you want your children in the room for. Now, as a journalist, I've covered many stories about sexual assault, but there's one I will never forget. I couldn't forget it if I tried. It's a story about a girl who I believe is nothing short of inspirational. At just 4 years old, her father died and she was sent to stay with her aunt and uncle. She remembers being excited to get on a plane and spend the summer in Colorado playing with her cousins. She really looked up to those 2 older boys. She couldn't wait for the fun they would have. But there was nothing fun for her in the basement of their house. You see, that's where her 16-year-old cousin first took her to touch her. He made her do things in exchange for candy he kept high on a shelf that she was too little to reach. She doesn't remember how many times it happened, but to this day, her stomach turns when she smells a musty room. When she finally returned home to her mother at the end of the summer, she stayed silent, obeying her promise to tell no one. Luckily, it wasn't long before her cousin confessed. He came forward later that year and told his family what he had done to her and other children. But what the girl didn't know at the time was that she was not alone in this life. Her mother was abused too, and her grandmother before that. You see, in her family, sexual abuse was an epidemic, a culture where young women, children, were preyed upon. It happened at a time in society when families just swept the ugly stuff under the rug, each victim believing that they must have done something wrong, and therefore it could only happen to them. So it continued on for generations. The effects of abuse manifested in many forms for each woman: depression, sexual promiscuity, drug abuse, and the inability to communicate with others. But this is a story of inspiration. And here's why this woman inspires me. She ultimately refused to let her past define her. The woman I know still struggles with confidence, panic, and sadness. But today, she refuses to stay silent. Every time I see her, I try to build her up. I tell her she's smart and worthy and wonderful. And then I walk away from the mirror and I start my day. You see, the girl I'm talking about is me. This is the first time I've ever told my story on television. In fact, it was just a few weeks ago that I told the story publicly for the first time to a gathering of abuse survivors. So why now? Because I think it's time to wipe away the glossy exterior. Anyone can be affected by sexual abuse. Even the lady who brings you the news and wishes you good morning with a smile on her face.
Just way cooler than I thought it was going to be, honestly. Way cooler than I thought it was going to be.
The best day ever for my dad to come home! Yeah!
But let's nominate 7-year-old Cameron Bloodworth.
So awesome!
Come on, buddy. There you go.
He's waiting for his dad, Chief Petty Officer Lance Bloodworth.
His outfit laid out, his toothbrush, his backpack, everything ready so he could get up and get out the door as fast as possible. It was very cute.
Cameron's mom, Rachel, is excited too for some relief. Just check out her sign.
Hey Lance, baby pooped, it's your turn. It's definitely his turn, long overdue.
Rachel's been taking care of 7-month-old Braden, JJ, 2, and Abby, 5. Of all the kids, the eldest, Cameron, is by far the most vocal.
Welcome home, Dad! And I'm one proud son of Dada. So awesome! I don't know how much longer my yelling can keep up with my throat.
The return was overwhelming. Then after about an hour's wait, the reunion became reality.
We are following breaking news here at 4 that just came out within the past half hour.
A bombshell allegation to make against the sitting mayor of the city of Seattle, with 3 men now saying that they were sexually abused by the mayor several years ago.
One day after accusations surface against Seattle Mayor Ed Murray, the city official within the past hour breaks his silence about sexual assault claims brought against him yesterday.
To be on the receiving end of such untrue allegations is very painful for me
Just in about the last 10 or 15 minutes, we received a statement, our Alyssa Hahn did, from Lincoln Beauregard, who is representing this alleged victim, who responded to that press conference today. And just quoting now partially of this statement from Lincoln, he says that after the mayor has done so much good for this community and inspired so many people, it must be hard for him to know that his career is over.
And for the first time, Murray explains his side of that story.
Different staff were assigned to different kids, and I was assigned to Jeff. Jeff, at that time, was a really troubled young kid. If I remember reading his records correctly, he had been sexually abused. He'd been in numerous foster homes.
5 political reporter Natalie Brand broke this story this evening. Joins us live now from the newsroom with the latest. Natalie?
And Greg, 2 sources close to the mayor's inner circle tell me that he's very likely to announce this week that he is planning to end his campaign for re-election.
So I'm announcing that I am withdrawing as a candidate for mayor.
And Mark, Amanda, these bombshell developments happened very quickly, very unexpectedly today. Sources told me that the mayor was meeting with staff members and his inner circle discussing the possibility of resigning and a transition of power. That news confirmed just after 1 p.m. today. The mayor did not hold a news conference, but rather sent out a statement announcing he will be resigning effective 5 p.m. tomorrow.
There's beeping going on, and so sometimes I'm like trying to, play along with the rhythms of the machines. They just start taking deeper breaths. Like sometimes you can even see like their heart rate drop or their blood pressure go down, like right on the monitor, which is pretty incredible.
I have been feeling tired because it was overnight and being transported, 911. The medics came last night, so I was tired. But this brought rest and a sense of peace,
Watch Carrie's face. That, right there. A tear, not of pain, not of sorrow. A tear of peace. In a place where peace can be hard to find.
Trooper Shane.
He's on watch at Harborview tonight.
And your hat?
Oh, badge.
Yeah, it's my badge, but I'm letting you use it. Because you're my partner, right?
He's our little mascot. We always need a Shane around.
He's popular among the nurses and even the other patients.
Did you already take a picture?
Well, I think he's great. You got to have lots of entertainment in the hospital, so it's good to have him on the floor.
The outlook for his recovery is good.
Could have been worse, and we feel blessed that it wasn't.
The family hopes by sharing their story, people will be careful this summer.
I'm right here.
Safety is on his mind.
The kid's the bad guy.
Apparently I'm the bad guy.
He will go home soon, and there's no doubt they're going to miss this face around here. He's been through so much, but he's still smiling, still bringing joy, and still being Shane.
Glenn, Drew, and Amanda are all tracking the impact of today's storm.
Trees, power lines, power poles down all over this side of the county. We are in Lacey. You can see a PSC crew is just arriving on the scene, which is great news for the folks in the 11 cars that are stuck here. This is on Yelm Highway, a very busy highway, especially at 4:30 in the afternoon, where we believe a tree brought down some power lines, and that snapped power poles in half, at least 5 power poles, bringing live wires surrounding cars, including the car of here, our good friend who we've just made a friend with here. Yvonne, tell me what this has been like.
What does it feel like? I'm really happy that I'm still alive. That's the only thing what I have to say, because I was slowly driving. I couldn't see anything. Then all in a sudden, the power line, I heard the noise on my roof. I didn't saw when anything else was falling down in front of me or behind me. I just saw the lights from that truck behind me. He was far away. Lucky me, he was slowing down, and then I stopped. There was no way.
And when the skies cleared, you told me you realized there was a power line across your hood?
Yes, right there, right there. It was first touching my car, and then I stopped because everybody was stopping.
Lisa's one of a growing number of single working women, over 35, who haven't found that special partner.
I think it's a big turning point in society that this is becoming more and more common.
Choice moms now setting out on their own to start a family in record numbers.
That was a kick.
Now let's get back to Lisa. She's gone from journaling to the real thing.
It's a little surreal, for sure.
When boyfriends or husbands aren't in the delivery room, it's key that others step up to the plate. In Lisa's case, her mom is the go-to.
Yeah, I definitely wanted to be here in time.
Greta Huntsman brought her support all the way from California.
She's not telling me the name. Not until she's born.
She is beyond ready to meet her granddaughter.
I think she's going to be like her mother, be very independent. We'll do it on my time, not your time.
And speaking of time, it wasn't time to push for another 33 hours.
Perfect. That's a really good position. Really pull your legs back.
Home stretch. Ready for a life-altering event. Yep. No sleep for the next 18 years. Nope.
Push, push, push.
So how was childbirth for Lisa?
Come on, baby.
Push, push, push.
Tonight in Texas, Harvey wears out his welcome.
I'm glad you're okay. Where are you going now? Out. Are you going to a shelter? A family member's house. And who is this on the back? Your mom. Is she okay? Yeah. Okay. Hi, Mom. Okay. So, you know, a lot of people actually are not evacuating because they want to stay in their home, but you just heard that the water for them is up to their chest.
They had to travel deep into the heart to do this work.
We're not sure if we're going to be here past tonight.
There is absolutely no better feeling in the world than saving a life. And most times you don't get that direct save to somebody. We're just a part of a big picture.
These are the 17 people who are part of that picture.
We're going to send out at least 4 boats.
They are part of the Washington Task Force 1.
At least as far as us, we'll be back down here and ready to go.
Okay.
Each have their own stories of why they traveled 50 hours nonstop, more than 2,000 miles from Pierce County to be in Houston.
We have an extra motor.
Like Fran Sharp, who was one of the only civilians on the team.
2 slots on the team were given to Tacoma Mountain Rescue. And I volunteer with Tacoma Mountain Rescue, and so I took one of those slots.
Washington, go ahead.
She's also the only woman who came with this crew to Texas.
2 Seattle police officers shot a short time ago responding to a robbery in the area. Just now, Chris Ingalls live on the phone with some new information. Chris, where are you and what do you know?
Well, right across from that federal building, Mark and Joyce, you know, this is the building at 2nd and Madison. I think they're showing it on TV now. I don't have a monitor. But I can tell you that we spoke to a police officer who said, hey, if you're in sight of that building, you're in danger. You guys need to get out of there. We ducked behind a corner, and there we ran into a woman who said she was a postal worker, a clerk who works in the federal building. And at first, right after the shooting, officers were saying, hey, stay in the building to be safe. All of a sudden, there were a bunch of police officers pounding on the window saying, get out of the building, get out of the building, and there was this evacuation suddenly.
I can see off in the distance a couple of police officers running, and we have more folks showing up here behind us as I get out of the way from one of the command posts. You can see these 2 SWAT rigs now pulling in here at the corner of 1st and Columbia into this area where everything is unfolding, and there is a high concentration of what appears to be Seattle police officers down at 1st and Madison, which is 2 blocks away from where I'm standing right now. A couple of people off in the distance running. Seattle Mayor Ed Murray just walked right in front of our camera, walking down the middle of 1st as he responds now. Right there is the Seattle police officer, and then another cruiser pulls into this. I mean, a massive, massive response.
New at 5 o'clock, video of a police shootout in downtown Seattle early this afternoon. 2 officers shot responding to a robbery. Seattle Police Department says 1 suspect is dead, a 2nd is in custody. Police now say talks with that suspect have revealed possibly a 3rd suspect. King 5 viewer Seth Rowan was installing windows in a building across Western Avenue when he recorded this startling video of that shootout.
This happened during the lunch hour, and there were a lot of people out and about, and we talked to this witness who saw what was happening right before their eyes.
Sitting at my desk, and then we heard the intercom system go off saying shelter in place, and that was it. And then I looked on Twitter and saw that there'd been a shooting downtown, and that they were looking for suspects around our building.
King 5's Greg Copeland joining us now. You talked with the man what he saw.
So Seth Rowan was working construction, installing windows just a couple stories up of the building across the street.
I hear some voices yelling, and I look up and I see the first suspect, the African-American guy, running my way. Cops chasing him. He's got his hand on his waist like this. He cuts the corner, looks a little bit confused. There's a loading dock area on the back of the federal building. He runs in there.
That's when he pulls out his phone and starts recording. And seconds later, this. We counted 10, possibly 11 shots there. And as Seth walked across the building to get a better vantage point, more shots. We counted 9 in all. A few minutes later, we see what appears to be the first suspect being placed in the back of a police car.
It was May 2015. Jennifer was back in Washington, addicted to heroin and working out of this motel on Pacific Highway.
I was in my Daisy Duke shorts and my thigh-high boots. I'd been working there the whole weekend, and I saw all these people walking by.
Marching with messages.
You know, I'm not for sale. You're worth more than $1, you know. So I saw 2 older ladies, and they said they were raising awareness and also trying to show their support to people that were in the industry. So I started crying.
That brings us back to that day where this story started.
Kind of crossing from one life into the other.
Coming face to face with that life. With the walk down Pacific Highway from the other side.
So this is about where it all began. 2 years before, I was in the life and watching them, wishing in the back of my head that one day I could be there, but not really believing that I could. 2 years later, it's actually done. That first goal, I really liked it.
Good job. Finally crossing the finish line she didn't expect to see.
The walk was like my first step in the fight against human trafficking. It was like the fight against my past, and it was a full circle for me.
Finally connecting with the people who made this all possible.
Good job. I was just saying, it's like the first goal I've ever set out in my life.
That's awesome!
No, thank you.
Yeah,
you guys want to make me cry.
Oh, we want to make you cry.
This scene is like a slow-motion horror movie for the people who live here. Their future crashing into the Skagit River and washing away.
It's pretty tough to watch.
Mark Harris is a city councilman in Lyman. This property that's sliding down into the water, it's his.
There goes another chunk.
He bought it 27 years ago. His neighbor's property has been in the family since the 1920s.
Wow.
Harris has lost almost 100 feet of land overnight.
The snapping and cracking you hear, that's trees and logs 24 inches plus in diameter. A lot of power.
His retirement plan toppling down and disappearing with the current.
Don't think anybody wants to buy it right now. So, several $100,000 down the drain.
Marge is Marge.
I'm choking up even. I'm very excited for her today.
You always know when she's in the building.
I've worked with Marge now for about 24 years.
Let me check you in here, okay?
She's tops.
Yeah.
She really cares about the people.
I love you. Love you, girl. I love you.
People here in Bremerton just really, really enjoy her.
Here you go. There you go.
After 40 years sending your mail.
This your last day? This is my last day. I will miss you.
Today, we send off the mailwoman.
Enjoy your retirement.
Oh, I will. I love you. Oh, baby. Oh, I got it.
She's a great person.
Retirement.
Out of here!
What he has done is beyond my imagination.
This guy right here, special. Special.
In just about everything, there's always that one person who stands out.
G. Scott Jr., wide receiver, Eastside Catholic High School.
In football, G. Scott Jr. is one of those people.
6'3", you know, built, huge radius, he can run.
College offers are pouring in.
But he has that will to be the best.
He's only a sophomore.
He's very humble and practical.
Junior credits his success to his story.
To me, this is far more than a game.
A story that started long before he ever stepped foot on the field.
Those are the things that make him G. Scott.
And this is the Scott legacy.
What do you think about when you're knitting?
I'm usually watching television.
Emma, hope you're watching this story right now. Watching me.
Oh.
Watching you.
Well, that keeps my fingers nimble.
Watching you do your thing.
This is called a garter stitch. You just knit every row, back and forth, just knitting.
Say that again.
This is the garter stitch, where I knit every row. Every row is knit. Then this is called the knit stitch, where I knit one way, and when I come back, I purl.
I'm really confused.
If you're a knitter, you know what I mean. So that ends
I'm
up
not a knitter.
Purl, knit, purl, all the way across.
I have no idea what you're talking about. I have no idea what you're
People
talking
who knit will know what I'm saying.
I'll take your word for it.
Reverse it, and you go purl, knit, and that's how this develops. So it's fuzzy on both sides.
Fact is, Emma Eng is on a blanket tear.
So how many altogether?
10, 20, 30, maybe 40 something.
Look at what she's created at Bellevue's Bellatini retirement community, where she's been a resident the last 5 years.
And Emma got the idea that she wanted to make custom blankets for all her four-legged friends that were waiting for adoption.
Who's she talking about? She's talking about Doug, Mama, Punch, that's who. They say timing is everything, and I figure it's time to ask.
You ever knit sweaters?
Not anymore. Maybe for myself, that's it.
For others? For others, maybe?
No.
For me?
Could I knit? I don't think so.
No. Fact is, I tried.
So I'm not going to get a sweater.
No. If you want a blanket, I'll knit you a blanket.
You know what? I don't want to deprive Doug, Mama, and Taylor, and all the other cats here.
This is a direct look
I've never done this, so
yeah, that's okay.
It's kind of dope, though.
At what these young men need to succeed in the classroom.
Nowadays, there's a lot of pressure to not be the stereotype. I'm just automatically hoodlum, or I'm automatically a thug because of the way I dress.
That makes me feel like I have to work harder.
Yeah.
Is it important for you to have a teacher that you can identify with?
If I walk into like the classroom and like I see like a black teacher, I would feel more connected to them.
Nobody knows what I'm doing here.
Sometimes we have to find out who we're not.
I'm not a girl, I know that.
To discover who we are.
I can't imagine going through this when I was 14.
The labels sometimes get in the way.
I mean, people usually think I'm like a guy. I go to Sammamish, but when then people see me on a softball field, they know like, okay, so this person's a female, question mark?
If you ask a question, you better be prepared to hear the answer because then we're going to tell you.
Sometimes we have it all wrong.
To not have that ability to describe to people who I was really, really weird.
The 7-week-old baby boy is alert but calm as he gets his bath.
Hey, you got a scratch on your nose.
Nurse Kelly Denhire checks his vitals.
He's holding his legs pretty stiff.
The casual observer may not see the signs that this baby was exposed to heroin, methamphetamine, and methadone while he was in the womb.
We also check to see if they have increased tone in their legs and arms.
The muscle tone comes from the uncontrollable tremors of heroin withdrawal.
Hey, buddy. What are you doing, huh?
In the world of short track, he is one of Team USA's best hopes to medal in Pyeongchang. 27-year-old J.R. Selski. He's a 3-time Olympic medalist and the world record holder in the 500-meter. Selski joined the inline speed skating team at Patterson's West in Federal Way when he was just 4.
Strong work ethic. You know, for cross-country skiing, it's not the most popular sport, and there's a lot of time that you're spending out in the mountains, you know, alone, putting in the hours, or out on the pavements, you know, smashing your poles into the ground, and nobody's watching. But in order to be the best, you have to, you know, we're training somewhere between 700 and 1,000 hours each year.
Eric and Sadie Bjornson have been working non-stop since May 1st. Skiing, running, weight training, and skiing some more.
It's starting to feel like winter's coming, so a lot of drive in the head, knowing that, you know, just a few months until Pyeongchang.
All right, time for some shower talk. Are you a bar soap fan or liquid soap user? And do you use that with a loofah or a washcloth? Now, this whole debate all started thanks to one of our producers here at King 5, Daniela. She also happens to be a millennial. Yes, that same group of folks who have changed the way we communicate with social media and have somehow made spending hours to look disheveled become a badge of honor. Now they could be influencing the way we shower as well. Daniela came to me with a debate. None of her friends like bar soap. They all happen to think it's filled with germs. Add to it, they all use loofahs, not washcloths. And they're far from alone. 60% of millennials agree with her friends that bar soap is dirty. Daniela, of course, is not your typical millennial when it comes to shower products, so she wanted my help talking some sense into her friends.
Stories on buildings, the buildings in Seattle.
It is a changing skyline. In this boom, it will continue to change.
They go up fast.
Yes.
Just as rents have gone up and home prices have gone up.
It keeps going up.
Real estate broker Brenda Nunes.
So it's displaced a lot of our residents.
They can't afford it.
They can't afford it. Crane City, USA.
The cranes tell the story.
Good business to be in, the crane business.
1, 2, 3.
In this story,
4, 5, 6.
About stories.
7, at least.
We'll have Richard Peterson help tell it.
The first thing we're going to do is melee. We're going to go 2-on-2.
If you thought these were Renaissance Fair reenactors, that what they're about to do is fake, you would be proven wrong right about now. This is the Armored Combat League.
Fighters ready?
It's full contact,
fight,
MMA style fighting with steel medieval armor and weapons.
The way you win is by putting the opponent in the dirt.
Oh, Brennan, keep it up. Keep breathing, Brennan. Keep breathing. Hey, stop fight.
A real testosterone fest, right?
Doing good, man.
You know, you put that helmet on and you feel really cool.
Alexa Bennett is a self-described computer nerd.
All I've got to do is just move my chest.
Who says she had no confidence when she walked into her first practice 10 months ago.
I mean, I went through like a massive transformation after I started the Armored Combat League. I was super overweight.
2/3 of your stomach is now gone.
Yes.
Toxic chemicals, including cyanide, poisoned workers at the Puget Sound Naval Shipyard.
The things that we did were horrible.
The King 5 investigators exposed the health threats and asked tough questions.
As a supervisor, I continued to do things that I look back at and it just gives me nightmares.
This is a King 5 special presentation. Disaster. Are you prepared? Here are your hosts, Glenn Farley and Lori Matsukawa.
Hello, I'm Glenn Farley at the Emergency Operations Center for the City of Seattle.
And I'm Lori Matsukawa. During an earthquake, this will become one busy place, coordinating the city's response to the disaster.
Not just the shaking, but the fault distorts the ocean floor as it slips, triggering the tsunami. To figure out how to manage a record disaster requires the biggest drill in state history.
We had a magnitude 9 earthquake off of our coast.
From the state level down to county and city emergency operations centers.
This is a King 5 special report. Prisoners in their own land.
With a stroke of a pen, President Franklin Delano Roosevelt sent more than 110,000 Americans of Japanese ancestry into American concentration camps during World War II. Many of those uprooted from Western Washington ended up here in Minidoka, Idaho. Executive Order 9066 allowed the Army to remove people of Japanese ancestry from the West Coast. The Army said they posed a military threat. Men, women, children, and old people had just 6 days to pack a single suitcase. They had to leave behind homes, crops, cars, radios, and pets. They were loaded onto buses and trains and shipped to desolate concentration camps. 62% of them were American citizens. No one was ever charged with espionage.
When I was younger, I had wished that someday I would ride a train.
Here's the windup and the 3-2 pitch, swinging a drive.
You've seen them on the field wearing a uniform with a Seattle logo. But underneath the jersey, there is a heart and soul that was grown in another country, where sport,
my passion, I love playing it,
is a means of survival.
Not only about baseball, but also about education.
Tonight, over the next hour, learn how those EMMYS stars and the franchise itself are using baseball to help change lives and young minds.
I love telling stories. Everybody is connected one way or another.
It's more than that.
We're all Northwesterners.
It's a responsibility and it's an opportunity.
You dry your gear out, dry your clothes off, and you get ready for it tomorrow.
We still need to communicate with our audience what's going on in our community.
When people ask, why do you come? For them. I came for you.
Why do this? Because I love it.
Here he is, the Dean of High School Sports, Paul Sylvie.
All right, let's get this thing started. King 5 High School Sports Blitz brought to you by Dairy Gold. Let's get to the highlights. We'll get to the map, show you where we've been tonight, where we're headed north, south. Here are the towns and the cities. We're in 14 places around the Sound, from Arlington to Sammamish, Seattle to Kent, Sumner to Tacoma and University Place. Again, as many games, close to 20 of them, we have tonight.
Home Team Harvest continues this morning, and we're hoping to make just a small difference. Actually, we're going to make a big difference thanks to all of you.
Yeah, we are at 6 spots across the area, so let's check in with Jake and Mimi at the Safeway in Bothell.
Hey guys, good morning. What a fun time. The energy's really picking up now, getting a little bit more daylight. A lot of people around here making donations to Home Team Harvest.
Do you want some cheese?
Welcome to another video, guys. Today we are partnering up with Hot Tub Boats
in South Lake Union. And what do you need on a boat?
A cheese platter.
Nice.
It's a hot tub, it's a boat. You might get things a little wet.
It's a new day.
This is New Day Northwest. Now, here's Margaret Larson.
Hey there, everybody. We start off the morning with a one-of-a-kind musical experience from rock icon David Byrne and Fatboy Slim.
And here we are at the 100-pound clam along the shores of beautiful South Lake Union.
Yes, enjoying a beautiful summer evening out here on the patio.
It is such a great place. They have a walk-up window where you can get your food and drinks, and then you have this incredible view. The seaplanes are constantly flying over you. It's super fun.
So what is this place?
Oh, well, this is Rage Industry.
You come in here to smash stuff.
You come in here to smash stuff. It's a lot of stress relief. It's satisfying, all of those things. There's like a variety of things you can pick, like toilets, TVs, printers.
Live, it's T-Mobile New Year's at the Needle. Now, here are your hosts, Kim Holcomb and Jim Dever.
Well, it is a cold, let's say
cold,
crisp night here in the waning hours of 2017.